So man up. Suck it up. These are terms that are just detrimental to young men, right? And so what I'm going to be talking about today is just kind of my story, but how these phrases can just be just horrific and how they've actually impacted my life as well. So, man up. When I was a kid, I lost a lot of folks, grandparents, family members, all sorts of stuff. I experienced a lot of death, actually, at a really young age, which was not the greatest thing in the world. And one of the things that we learned from that was that you don't talk about it. You should talk about it. But what I learned from it was that you don't talk about it. So in our family, what we did was that, well, you went in your corner, you go in your corner, we're going to kind of deal with it, and then come back together and pretend like everything's fine again. And so for like a little kid, that didn't work because, everyone's dealing with stuff, but I'm just kind of lost in all this, right? So that's how things kind of started for me, and it only got worse. So throughout middle school, experiencing things like bullying, high school, I was really starting to experience like a mental illness, and man up, suck it up, were terms that just kind of stuck with me. And so all that did was that meant shut things down, shove it as far as you can, because we're not going to deal with this, right? Maybe in our private corner we can deal with it, but not here in the world, right? So it wasn't until after high school that I was actually diagnosed with a couple of anxiety disorders, so panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and borderline personality disorder. Yay! So that was that. So anxiety, we kind of have an idea of what that might be, yeah? Anxiety makes sense. Cool. What about borderline personality disorder? Has anyone ever heard of that? A couple of us? Okay. Sweet. If you have not, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. And what it means, what it is, it's like all the emotions that you have, you don't know what they are, so you just kind of be. You're just kind of like acting as your day goes. Relationships are really hard, so you want to be really close to someone really, really fast, and then you cut them off really fast as well. And then there's also sorts of like fun things like self-harm and negative self-thoughts and all sorts of really great things that we deal with. So these were things that I was kind of dealing with as a young kid, and I remember in high school, like I would meet even in university, like I would meet a lady, and then within a week I would fall mad in love, and I'm like, hey, this is the woman of my dreams. We're gonna get like a house, we're gonna get kids, we're gonna get the dog, we're gonna get the whole shebang, the car. Boom! This is the lady. And then a week later, I hated her, and I had no idea why. It was just like a switch would flip, and then I'd be like, okay, nope, you're done. And so I'd have to make up all the excuses about like how to break up with people. I'd be like, yeah, you dyed your hair. It's not my thing, we done. It was awful, right? So I had no idea what was going on, and so it was all these kind of things that I had to deal with. So things got pretty bad for a while there, to the point where I was even considering taking my own life, and that was a point where I was like, okay, we got to do something about this because this ain't working. How I'm dealing with things isn't working anymore. So I went to go see a therapist, and I am one of the lucky ones that like met a therapist and loved her off the bat, and then had a really good connection, because so my therapist, she was like, I don't know, 70, 80 years old. She was this tall and she swore like a sailor, and I loved it. She just flipped me off, and she was like, hey, Taylor, how you doing? And I loved it. And immediately I had this connection with her, right? And so I did tons and tons of work with this lady. I even did, I don't know if you can even think back, in kindergarten we did those faces, and this face meant like this is happy, and this is sad, and this is excited. I had to redo all that as an adult, and it was really weird, but I've done so much work that I actually don't deal with that at all anymore, which is really, really cool. So I went to, thank you. You're too kind. Well, thank you. I actually that was a funny story too. I went to my doctor, and I said, so I don't deal with this stuff. I haven't dealt with it for like years. How does the process of like being undiagnosed goes? She says, well, Taylor, you're undiagnosed. I said, that's it? That's all I got? I expected like a plaque or something. But now it's just, you were undiagnosed. Yeah, so that's magical. But, so what I kind of go from now is that, like, I think about these things and how man up, and that was one of the big things that I had to kind of shake was that, you know, we can't just stuff things down anymore. That doesn't work for anyone, you know, male or women. It doesn't work because all that does is that it builds things up until you explode, right? And then things come out in a really, really negative way, and that's not helpful for anyone, right? So that's kind of some of the things that I try to talk about in schools is that's one of the things I do now is I go into schools and I talk about mental health and I try to teach young people just to say, hey, you know, like we can talk about emotions, we can be vulnerable, we can have conversations about things that are kind of scary sometimes, and that's okay. You know, I kind of like, I always think of like maybe if someday I get, you know, to have a kid or something, like I would love just to have these super emotional, vulnerable kids, because I think like that's the way you kind of gotta be, right? And like know how to work with these emotions, because it's important. It's important to talk about these things. But you know, what's cool too is that like society's shifting a little bit. I remember I went and I did a presentation and I talked to these young boys and I said, you know, as guys, like you can't talk about stuff, right? Like you can't journal, you can't do like, you know, lame stuff like that. And they're like, what do you mean you can't do that? Wow, yes, like yes, keep that up, right? And I had to explain to them that like, you know, growing up in my kind of age, like that was a thing. You just didn't talk about your stuff. So it's very cool to see, and I have a lot of hope for the future because I think things are shifting, and that's really cool to hear. So yeah, I don't know. What else do you want to hear from me? I think just the last couple things is that like, if you could take home anything from even just my story, even though it's kind of a snippet, it's just that be open with people, have those connections. Don't be afraid to have these connections. I love the vibe of MoMonday and just the fact that even like making connections to a stranger, you know, and doing these cool things like our intentions. I think that's awesome, right? So don't be afraid to have that vulnerability because that's what brings us together. So look out for each other. Love you guys.